Alrighty, welcome back to another thrilling installment of Mecha Mondays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Pilot Fragath, and today we're going to be reading through the start of Volume 6 of Full Metal Panic, entitled Full Metal Panic, Dancing Very Merry Christmas. And with that decidedly inauspicious title, they're all kind of irreverent. Or are references to action movies or pop songs. And frequently both, actually. Where is Chapter 2 here? How far along is that? I can probably cut it off there. Let me get this maneuvered here. So this is, if memory serves, it's been a minute, a bit of a cool down or calm down period from the last two entries, which were kind of ratcheting up the melodrama and everything to a pretty crazy degree. We're approaching the end of the year, and how does this start? Anyway, someone wants to get a cruise ship, if you can believe that. There is going to be action sequences in this, but it's going to be more rom-com than action thriller. But we are going to have spy shenanigans and a few other things. I had something really pithy and intelligent to say, and it is gone now. It's going to be one of those mornings. My apologies. So yeah, I guess without further mussing about or ado or what have you, let's get crack-a-lackin'. Full Metal Panic, Book 6, Dancing Very Merry Christmas by Shouji Gatou. Illustrations by Shikidoji. Prologue.
We can't turn down such a fine invitation, Miss Tsuboi.
The representative from the Board of Education, accompanied by some PTA officers, insisted to Principal Tsuboi Takako.
I know this is all very sudden, but your second years will be dividing...
Oh, diving, hello.
But your second years will be diving into test preparation when they return from their holiday, which means it's now or never, and losing their big field trip must have been an awful blow to their spirits.
Of course, Principal Tsuboi responded without enthusiasm. She was a middle-aged woman dressed in a no-nonsense suit, though she was just over 50, the waves of trouble that had rocked her school ceaselessly since the year began seemed to have aged her considerably.
The field trip is an important memory for young people to have,
the BOE representative insisted.
To lose out on that, to a hijacking of all things, the emotional scarring must be incalculable. Please allow me to offer my deepest sympathies.
Very much appreciated, Principal Tsuboi wheezed again. It was the polite response, but as far as she knew, none of her students had had the decency to feel particularly traumatized by the incident. None of them seemed to be bothered in the slightest. In fact, they practically bragged about it to the upperclassmen and students from other schools. It was as if their scheduled tour of battle sites in Okinawa had been replaced by nothing more than a visit to some strange theme park. Deep down, Principal Tsuboi felt that she was the one who really deserved sympathy, being tasked with the education of students like that. The BOE representative continued.
Anyway, Mr. Kaneyama of the Mishima Memorial Education Foundation, who was heartbroken when he heard the story, by the way, has prepared a little something special. He wants to gift a trip to the students of Jindai High so that they can make a new memory.
He passed her a pamphlet across the conference table. It featured a picture of a huge, beautiful passenger liner cutting through an emerald sea beneath a clear blue sky. The ship was dotted with windows and stacked high with an intricate arrangement of decks. Waves crested before its curved prow.
The Pacific Chrysalis. It travels all around the world, and it's scheduled for a one-night cruise out of the port of Yokohama on the 24th.
And he wants to host my students on this luxury liner?
The principal asked skeptically.
Yes, he says they're all invited. Of course, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a luxury liner. Cruise ships are growing more accessible all over the world. They won't even have to dress up. Honestly, it's more like a floating theme park. Even as far as pocket money goes, I'm told they won't even need more than they would for a domestic trip.
Right.
Think of it more like a visit to Tokyo Disneyland,
the BOE representative said placatingly.
Best of all, the point of departure is Yokohama, just a short train ride away. They won't even have to board a plane. What do you think, Principal Tsuboi? This is a very generous offer that the Mishima Foundation is making. We hope you'll consider it swiftly and earnestly.
Principal Tsuboi fell into silent thought. It really wasn't a bad offer at all. She had heard of the Mishima Memorial Foundation before, and everything she'd heard was positive. They were a philanthropic organization with a focus on fostering international goodwill. They were known for providing medical support and cultural exchanges with impoverished countries, including North Korea. Given the role that country had played in the hijacking then, it didn't seem odd for them to extend an offer like this one. The BOE representative had also said that there might be a small article about the trip in the newspaper's local section. She wouldn't accept her school being used for large-scale advertisement, but a single minor article was probably tolerable. And there had been some grumbling among the student body over the fact that the field trip had been called off, with nothing planned to replace it.
Well then, she said at last, I will give the offer a serious consideration.
Excellent. I knew you'd say that.
But the decision is not mine alone to make, Principal Tsuboi insisted firmly. I need to discuss it with my teachers. It could affect our event schedule, after all.
Of course. Discuss it all you wish,
the BOE representative told her.
We just wanted you to know that the Board of Education is fully on board. The rest is up to Jindai High.
The PTA officials, who'd spent the entire meeting silently flanking him, now voiced their agreement.
We feel the same way, Ms. Tsuboi,
one of them put in.
We hope you'll go and enjoy the trip,
said another. There wasn't much Tsuboi could do to oppose such a hard sell from both the BOE and the PTA. A few days later, at a teachers' conference, it was decided that they would take any interested students on the proposed trip. One week later, Class 2-4 took a break from finals preparation to hear the announcement.
Okay, everyone listening, have a good look through this,
said their homeroom teacher, Kagurazaka Eri, as she passed a paper around to the students.
This is a little last minute, but we've decided to hold a special event to make up for how your class trip turned out. It'll be just the night of the 24th, coinciding with the end-of-term ceremony. A charitable foundation and a travel company are collaborating to take our second-year students on a Christmas cruise, she went on excitedly. Isn't that incredible? Look at this big, beautiful luxury liner. All-you-can-eat high-class cuisine and all kinds of things to do. Pools, athletic facilities, shopping centers, arcades, plus exclusive events like concerts and musicals, movies, a gift giveaway, and more. Of course, attendance is totally free. Wow, the students breathed in amazed chorus. Participation is voluntary, so you'll need to fill in the forms I just handed out, then have a guardian sign them. Now, what I'm about to say is very important. Eri launched into an explanation of the details. By next week, provide a copy of your insurance card, a letter of consent from your guardian, and a photo for the ID card you'll be using on board. Only students in proper uniforms will be allowed on ship. Those with chronic conditions and allergies, be sure to speak with the ship's doctor beforehand. Things like that. Chidori Kaname barely listened to the explanation as she gazed at her form blankly, and Tokiwa Kyoko, from the seat next to hers, spoke up in a whisper. Hey, Kana-chan, are you going? I'm not sure. I mean, it's free, so I guess so? Still, her eyes were fixed on the date of the trip, December 24th. That would be Kaname's 17th birthday. Some might find the idea of being born on Christmas Eve romantic, but Kaname had always found it to be more of a problem than anything. While her little sister, born in May, would get discreet Christmas and birthday presents, Kaname's were always conflated. It had been a real source of friction between them when they were younger. Of course, any arguments about this always ended the same way, with Kaname being told, "You're the big sister, endure it." Apparently, said sister was planning to spend this Christmas with their father in New York, where he worked. Kaname's relationship with her father wasn't the best, so she couldn't pretend it was easier not to see him, but... While Kaname was thinking, Eri was wrapping things up. That should just about cover it. Any questions? I have one. Immediately, a male student sitting in a seat by the window, Sagara Sosuke, raised his hand. He was wearing his usual sullen expression, with his mouth set in its usual tight frown, and amid a student body uniformly excited about the unexpected event, he was the only one sporting a wrinkled brow and troubled eyes. Sagara-kun, Eri acknowledged him. What is it? This consent form is insufficient, Sosuke said, waving around the paper she'd passed him. It talks about precautions in case of accidents occurring during the trip, but it says nothing about what the school has done to prepare for a terrorist attack. What in the world are you talking about? Eri asked him, incredulously. I thought we had learned our lesson back in April, Sosuke shot back. Don't even suggest something so awful. It's not as if the exact same thing could happen twice. If we had to prepare for every minuscule possibility, no school would ever be able to go on a trip. It's dangerous to make light of it, Sosuke said gravely. We got off easy the last time, but we might not be so lucky again. Think of the 1985 seajacking of the Italian cruise ship, the Achille Lauro. That's better. I don't even know what that is, Eri was forced to admit. The passengers were mostly defenseless old men in wheelchairs, Sosuke explained. Yet one hostage was shot in the chest and the face and thrown into the sea. Eri just stood there, stunned. In addition, he went on, the terrorists made 3 hostages hold grenades with their pins removed, with the rest of the hostages gathered around them. Their fear must have transcended language. One careless moment could lead to all of their deaths. These deaths would be painful, too. Brains and organs scattered everywhere. Fear and chaos are a terrorist's M.O. It's important to remember that. A leaden air hung over the room. The class, which had been humming with excitement over the opulent proposal, was now dead silent. But don't worry. This time, as aide to the Student Council President in charge of safety and security, I intend to protect you all, Sosuke promised. I therefore request permission to bring a submachine gun, C4 explosives, and directional mines on board. With proper armaments and planning, I will dispose of the seajackers one by one, drown them in their own blood, and smash! Kaname was there in a flash and sent Sosuke flying with a kick. He crashed through multiple desks before landing in a heap on the floor.
What are you doing, Chidori?
He groaned. "Shut up!" she told him angrily. "You saw how excited everyone was. Maybe you could try not to ruin that?"
But the alarm bells of tragedy.
"No one wants to hear about alarm bells of tragedy."
But the Achille Larue.
He began, trying to defend himself.
"Shut up, you stupid little... That hurts, Chidori. It's painful. Being around you is painful."
Kaname kept kicking Sosuke until her classmates, unable to watch any longer, finally pulled her off him. Chapter 1. Unfixed Schedule. 21 December, 01:35 hours, local time. Spratly Islands.
It's an awfully extensive facility for such a remote island.
Sagara Sosuke allowed himself to be impressed, momentarily forgetting the similar nature of his own forces base. His machine's night vision sensors made the sea around him look green. The island in question towered over it, a mere 2 kilometers across at its widest. The main mass was a rocky mountain dozens of meters high, which grew thick with grass and a small handful of trees. It was a common sort of topography here at the edge of the Spratly Island chain. But that wasn't all that he saw. A variety of radar antennas topped the mountain's highest points. Foot soldiers patrolled, equipped with night vision goggles. Electromagnetic-sensitive mines floated on the water, effectively preventing the approach of mini-submarines. It was impressive security for a pirate stronghold. Most squads wouldn't even be able to get close. Most squads, that is. The armed slave Sosuke was operating, the ARX-7 Arbalest, had just arrived on the north shore of this pirate island. According to the pre-mission briefing, the south shore was home to a small harbor and dock. The dock was apparently where the pirates moored the high-speed craft they'd been using to raid passing commercial ships for the past few months. It also hosted the warehouse in which they stored their supplies, ammunition, and plundered goods. The north shore, meanwhile, was a treacherous cliff constantly pounded by waves. Sosuke was supposed to climb the rock face here, to ambush the base on the south side from behind. Any flesh-and-blood soldier who tried to scale the cliff would surely end up dead, dashed by the waves against the jagged rocks. Only the humanoid weapons known as ASs could handle a secret landing in terrain like this. It was night, and the only light available came from the moon, glowing faintly through the clouds. The Arbalest, painted a dark gray to blend in with the darkness, released the faintest of whines from its electromagnetic muscles as it scaled the rocky cliff. Once he had gotten beyond the reach of the sea spray, Sosuke activated his machine's ECS-enabled invisibility mode. The armor opened in places, revealing lens-shaped devices. These projected a hologram screen that enveloped the machine and caused it to disappear into thin air. Just then, he received a transmission from an allied machine.
Uro 6 to 7, what's the hold-up? We've been waiting forever.
Sergeant Kurtz Weber complained. He was in a sniping position on the south side of the island, where the waves were much calmer.
Uru 7 here, Sosuke replied briefly. I'm not there yet. Remain on standby.
So what's the hold-up? You've got a wire gun, right? Get up the damn cliff already.
If I knock any rocks down, the enemy foot soldiers will hear my approach.
Then shut 'em up with your taser. Just...
Transmission over,
Sosuke said, cutting him off, and then grumbled to himself. He'd worked hard to get this far unnoticed. A more mediocre operator would already be out of the fight after having triggered a mine, or he'd have ruined the whole mission after being discovered by a foot soldier.
Alert message. You are 15 minutes behind the expected attack time. Move to waypoint Foxtrot swiftly.
It wasn't just Kurtz. The Arbalest's AI was also hurrying him up.
Shut up,
he snarled back.
Roger. But first, a word of caution.
Statistics suggest that a sense of impatience doubles one's potential for error. Singing is recommended to calm your mental state. I have prepared 50 of the latest hit songs. If you have any requests... It would have been one thing if he'd said it in a joking fashion, but Al's voice remained matter-of-fact, and it just made Sosuke more annoyed.
I didn't order you to prepare songs. Don't waste your storage space without permission.
It is no issue. It is a mere 1.2 gigabytes.
Delete it all or I'll destroy it myself, for the good of the mission.
I interpret this message to be a joke. Joking is also an effective countermeasure. I've prepared 50 jokes designed to make humans laugh. If you have any requests...
It's not a joke, it's a warning.
Excuse me. Al said nothing more. Actually, one sec. Let's roll this back. Did they say 1.2 gigabytes? They sure did. 50 songs? Even in FLAC format, I don't know, man. That seems high. I think he maybe got more than 50 songs. In the cockpit, Sosuke shook his head irritably, and the arbalest mimicked his motion. Who ever heard of such a pointlessly helpful AI, anyway? Imagine a machine's control support system telling him to sing, of all things. In the 2 months since Hong Kong, his AI's behavior had gotten stranger and stranger by the day. It was making small talk regularly now, and lack of any obvious signs of malfunction made it all the more annoying. According to the maintenance crew, they'd hooked him up with an FM radio and BSTV input on Al's request, and he seemed to be receiving shows. Now, Sosuke wondered if he should have stopped them. The arbalest used its manipulators and foot spikes to carefully scale the cliff. The machine's ECS was working smoothly. He had to make countless stops to let foot soldiers on the cliff above pass by, and had a few close calls where he almost went plunging. But at last, 5 minutes later, Sosuke reached his designated location and informed the team leader,
Urus 7 to Urus 2. I've arrived at Waypoint Golf.
A reply came after a pause.
Urus 2, roger that. Let's get the party started. Ready? Set your ADM to presets. All units run final checks, then give verbal confirmation.
It was their strike team leader, Second Lieutenant Melissa Mao, who showed no inclination to scold him for the delay.
Urus 6, no problems here.
Urus 7, ready.
Gibbo 3, ready.
Gibbo 4, ready.
After Kurtz and Sosuke, the two Gebo responses were from transport helicopters, which were hovering on standby about a click from the base. Thanks to their newly integrated sound reduction systems, the arbalest's audio sensors could only barely make out the sound of their rotors and engines. The helicopters carried 20 infantry apiece, who would storm the island and lock it down after the ASs had finished their initial assault.
Okay. Ahem.
Once everyone had reported in, Mao cleared her throat and shouted,
Then attack commence! Go, go, go!
Al, Sosuke ordered,
drop ECS and switch to military power and combat mode.
Roger. ECS off. GPL military. Master mode 2. The ECS shut down, allowing all power to be diverted to combat functions. Blue sparks popped and hissed against the purple-black sky, and the white machine appeared, standing at the top of the rocky mountain. A pirate dozing in a nearby watchtower stared in disbelief as he witnessed the phenomenon for the first time. He hesitated over whether to reach for the machine gun switch, the alarm, or both, but ended up collapsing with a howl before he could reach either of them. An electric pulse from the taser in the arbalest's hand had knocked him cold.
Starting up,
Sosuke said, without sparing the fallen man so much as a glance. Roger. Sosuke's arm in the cockpit moved, and the arbalest's arm moved to match it. It pointed its boxer shot cannon, made by the Italian OTO Melara Corporation, directly at the pirate base right below. There were all kinds of targets to choose from: the control room, ammunition depot, old-fashioned ASs, SPAGs, which is some kind of anti-aircraft gun. I can't remember what the SP stands for. He set his sights first on the roof of the depot and pulled the trigger. It hit hard. The double-aught heat, fired by the Boxer, blew off the roof and set the ammunition ablaze. An explosion boomed out, and a pillar of flame raked the sky, acting like a starting gun for full hostilities. E3 destroyed. Great balls of fire. Stop talking now, Sosuke ordered, thinking that Al was sounding almost as flip as Kurtz. Sosuke clicked his tongue and took aim at his next target. The first few minutes of combat would all but decide the outcome. Their surprise attack had taken out the pirates' control room, ammunition, and moored high-speed craft, which had thrown them into pandemonium. And as for the old-style Soviet ASs set up in the back of the base, the RK-89 Shamrocks, Sosuke had no idea what they were doing on an island like this. They were instantly dispatched by shots from Mao's machine before their operators could even reach them. Mao's AS, the M9 Gernsback, was still in the ocean, making its way slowly toward the pirates' dock while waist-deep in seawater. Mao was getting sniper support from Kurtz, in position behind her, and from Sosuke on the mountain above.
Woo! Just like a shooting gallery, Kurtz laughed over the radio.
Uru 6, keep your guard up. We haven't taken out all the foot soldiers, and you know it's when we get cocky that we...
There was a roar. Before Mao could finish, a pillar of water burst up, just to her right. Something must have exploded nearby.
What was that? She shouted, panicked. It didn't come from their base.
Sprays of salt water dashed against her M9 as she whipped it around, using its head-mounted radar to scan the area.
Urus 2, 3 o'clock, distance 4, 8 enemy HSC.
Oh, that's Sosuke.
Urus 2, 3 o'clock, distance 4, 8 enemy HSC.
Sosuke had a better vantage point than Mao from on top of the mountain, so he gave her the verbal warning, while Al wordlessly used the machine's high-speed advanced data modem to distribute their sensor information to all allied machines. 8 high-speed craft were approaching, coming from around the island's west side. It was a blind spot from Sosuke's point of view, which was why he'd been slow to spot them. They were probably returning from a raid, with the worst possible timing. Their speed was 40 knots, about 74 kilometers per hour, and despite their small size, each was equipped with 20mm machine cannons and infantry rockets. The 8 boats kicked up a sheet of water as they unleashed their weapons on Mao, who cursed at this new wave of concentrated fire.
Eek! I mean, damn it! What the hell? Intelligence said they only had what was in the dock. Where'd the reinforcements come from?
It's the usual. Bad intelligence. I wish they'd give us a break for once,
Kurtz muttered.
Stop bitching and do something!
Mao screamed at him.
I am! That's 2 down.
Kurtz's 76mm shots had hit their targets, taking out 2 pirate boats in a fiery explosion.
Only 2?
Hold your horses. They're far and they're pretty damn fast. Wish I'd brought a Hellfire or a Versailles,
Kurtz said, sounding a little panicked. The Hellfire and the Versailles were kinds of guided missiles used by ASs. The position assigned to Kurtz for backup sniping was the perfect distance for safely taking aim at stationary targets, but it was less useful against targets moving at 40 knots. It was a testament to his skills that he'd been able to take out 2 already. 6 boats remained. They raced through the water around Mao's M9, peppering it mercilessly with shells and rockets. Her head-mounted machine guns blazed and filled another boat with holes, but that still left 5 remaining.
So annoying, she wailed. This is really bad.
The M9 sloshed awkwardly through the heavy water, taking evasive maneuvers. Even with the M9's armor and maneuverability, it couldn't endure such a fierce assault for long. Sergeant, Urus 2 is in danger. We must open fire at the enemy HSCs, Al told Sosuke, who was simply watching from the mountaintop without firing any support shots.
Inefficient at this distance, Sosuke said dismissively. We don't have many shots left.
Shoot the high-speed craft. There is no other choice, No choice, eh? I disagree.
Sosuke promptly took the arbalest a few steps down the mountain, judged his timing, and launched into a starting run.
Sergeant, this angle is... Shut up and help me!
Immediately, he dove off the edge of the rocky mountain and leaped the arbalest over the ocean. Wreathed by the silver moon, the slender silhouette hung in the air. Just as it reached the apex of its arc and began to descend, Sosuke fired off his arm's wire gun. When the anchor pierced one of the high-speed craft racing around down below, he immediately retracted the wire, closing the gap between the two in a flash. The arbalest landed on top of the boat with a scream of metal and a spray of seawater. The deck buckled beneath its feet, and it sank so far it nearly capsized. In human-sized terms, the effect was like falling several stories to land on a pedal boat.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Kurtz shouted in surprise. The men aboard the unfortunate HSC had fallen on their backsides in shock. As they gazed up at the arbalest, it plunged its monomolecular cutter into the deck to regain its balance, then let loose with its head-mounted 12.7mm machine guns. The shots shredded the boat's armaments and engine, effectively taking it out of the fight.
Get the gist? He asked Al. Let's jump to the next one.
Kicking its way off of the now smoking boat, the arbalest jumped. Sosuke shot the wire gun in its left arm again, this time at a high-speed craft racing just ahead. Then the high-powered motor quickly retracted the wire and...
Landing achieved!
Sosuke sprayed machine gun fire across the violently rocking boat, taking out its engine and gun turrets. The arbalest's sensors quickly scanned its surroundings. The closest pirate boat had just fired a rocket in his direction. Its red light was closing in. With a grunt, Sosuke jumped a third time, managing it just before impact. The rocket hit the boat he had just been standing on and exploded. His machine twisted through the air, backed by fire. The arbalest roared down from the sky, aiming for the enemy boat currently bathing him in cannon fire, and successfully completed his third landing. The pirates practically climbed over each other to escape, evacuating into the dark sea around them.
Sergeant, such tactics were not anticipated. They are nonsense.
Are they? Sosuke said, manipulating his machine.
Tell me the definition of nonsense.
Impossible, reckless, irrational.
You really are just a machine,
Sosuke told him as the arbalest shot a boxer shell into a now empty gun turret and the engine section. The battle thereafter was completely one-sided. All of the high-speed craft were destroyed, and the pirates in the base were in a rout. Mao's M9 made landfall and went around taking out their remaining defenses. With her external speakers on, she called for surrenders in Cantonese, Mandarin, and Vietnamese. Any who kept up their resistance got a zap from her taser. Their transport helicopters landed, and their ground forces poured out. Decked out in thick body armor, carrying bulletproof plastic shields, and under the cover provided by Sosuke and the others, they swarmed into the structures that the ASs couldn't enter. Before long, each team had announced that they had secured their designated area. Several minutes after that, the pirates that had surrendered were chained up and gathered in the dock. Their mission was effectively complete.
Yeah, yeesh, that was rougher than I expected.
Kurtz's machine, too, had moved from its sniping point to join them, striding through the smoke to eventually make landfall. The M9 Gernsbacks that he and Mao were operating had similar silhouettes to the arbalest, with long limbs, slender waists, and gray armor that dripped with seawater.
Let's just be glad that no Venoms showed up,
Sosuke said, returning the shot cannon to the arbalest's waist hardpoint. It was standing next to a group of pirates, seated and stripped of their weapons, and the Allied ground forces who were watching over them. The pirates were sulking as if they'd lost a game to a cheating opponent. They didn't seem to like that their impenetrable stronghold had fallen so easily to the weapons known as ASs. Horus 9 here. All ground squads have secured their areas. Just 2 light injuries on our side and no compromise to mission performance. Pirates have 8 dead, 4 badly wounded, 10 lightly wounded, reported Corporal Yang Jun-Kyu, the infantry team leader, over the radio. Apparently, they'd had to kill some resisting pirates, but then these were people who had attacked any number of shipping vessels and killed their crews as well. They were already being generous by employing tasers and tear gas and giving them a chance to surrender. It was the pirates' own fault if they chose to die instead.
But did we really have to come all this way just for some crummy pirates?
Kurtz muttered, surveying the hostages with his M9's head-mounted sensors.
These are the Spratly Islands. It's a jumble of spheres of influence. North and South China, Vietnam, Taiwan. That by itself makes it difficult for any national military to perform large-scale exercises here. This was explained in the briefing,
Sosuke said. Kurtz's M9 waved its left hand in annoyance.
Come on, I know that much.
Besides, this mission wasn't just about taking out pirates, Sosuke went on. The name of the island is important, too.
Badamu Island. That was the name of the isolated islet that the pirates had taken as their base. It had many names, as many as there were countries that claimed control of the Spratlys, and as many as there were languages that the Westerners who had once controlled the island spoke. This name, its Mandarin one, was similar to Badam, the keyword that Gowron had passed to Sosuke in Hong Kong. If it had just been the name alone, with nothing else distinctive about it, Mithril likely would have paid the island no mind. But the fact that it was also a stronghold for pirates causing trouble around the Spratlys made it a different story. Intense investigation and recon work suggested that there was little chance that the island was connected to Amalgam, but at the same time they couldn't be sure that it wasn't.
Oros 8 to all.
Corporal Speck, the one investigating the pirates' base storage blocks, said over the radio.
All I've got here is ammo and heroin. There are containers of vanadium, too, but they're probably plundered. From the Peruvian vessel they raided a few weeks ago, I'd wager. Vanadium? It's a rare metal, used to make M9s like the one you're piloting now. It's skyrocketed in price in the last few years thanks to the Soviet Civil War and uprisings in South Africa and such. It's not as valuable as heroin, but, well, that's a pretty high bar. Oh, you know a lot about it, Kurtz muttered softly. I've been playing with stocks lately. Read an economics magazine now and then. When you make fighting your whole life, you get stupid. Shut up, you gambling addict.
Sosuke interrupted Kurtz and Speck's discussion.
Was there anything else that stood out? Any complex machinery or AS parts?
Nope. It's your standard pirate base, top to bottom, Corporal Speck confirmed. Nothing to connect it to those amalgam guys.
We can't be sure yet. We need to interrogate the base commander first,
Mao said. Her M9 had moved to the summit of the rocky mountain where she was keeping watch over the surroundings.
Oros 9 here. About that, Corporal Yang said. The commander doesn't seem to be among the hostages, though that doesn't mean he isn't in the base somewhere. Oros 7 here. He could be hiding among the rank and file, or he could be somewhere on the island.
Sosuke got that far, then stopped as he realized something. The arbalest sensors gave him a view of the rocky slope, and he could see a person moving around on the rock face that looked out over the harbor. The smoke and the darkness made it hard to see precisely, but it looked like the man had an anti-tank missile on his shoulder. No, he definitely did. The missile was pointing down at him from above, but by the time Sosuke realized it, the man had already fired.
Sosuke, 1 o'clock.
Warning, ATM. Kurtz's and Owl's warnings came at the exact same time. It was a close-range shot, but well within the range of what the arbalest could dodge. Still, he knew that dozens of hostages and allied infantrymen were right behind him. In other words, right in the missile's path. If Sosuke dodged, the missile would fly smack into the middle of those unarmed men. He made the decision in a split second. Sosuke didn't dodge, but faced down the charging missile. There was a flash and a roar, and the anti-tank missile struck the arbalest's upper half.
Damn it!
Instantly, Kurtz's M9 let loose with its 12.7mm head-mounted machine guns on full automatic. Bullets the size of Tabasco sauce bottles rained down in an instant, shredding the man who'd fired the missile, along with the rock he'd been standing on.
Sosuke!
Kurtz whipped around. As the smoke cleared, the arbalest could be seen, completely intact. It hadn't moved from its arms-crossed position, but there wasn't a single dent in the armor. Normally, a direct hit from a missile like that would have blown it to pieces. "Not an issue," Sosuke said at length. An invisible wall that had formed in front of the arbalest had blocked the missile's explosion, and the missile itself, dispersing the shockwave harmlessly. "Urus 2 here. What happened? Status report!" Mao spoke nervously. "Urus 7 here," Sosuke replied. "I was attacked by a remaining enemy soldier, but Urus 6 took him out. No damage on our side." A small sigh of relief came out over the radio. "Urus 2, roger. Be careful, okay?" The transmission ended, and Sosuke stood his machine up. Kurtz's M9 was staring at him and the arbalest.
Sosuke, did you just...
"Yeah," he answered. "Did you register it?"
I think so."
Kurtz answered, flummoxed as he fiddled with the unfamiliar device.
"Al, it worked, didn't it?"
Affirmative. No damage to machine detected. Main capacitor voltage is stable as well.
"Good. Store the 120 seconds worth of data before and after into high compression file Zulu 1.
Roger."
Sosuke felt like he was starting to get the hang of this. Together, he and the arbalest were learning how to use the Lambda driver.
"It's a hell of a thing, though," Kurtz breathed, "seeing it up close. You know that was a direct hit from an ATM, right? And you freaking brushed it off. That device scares the crap out of me."
"I thought the same thing the first time I saw the ECS's full invisibility mode," Sosuke responded. "Don't think too hard about it. It'll seem completely natural soon enough."
"Well, maybe, I guess," Kurtz said over the radio in a thoughtful tone. "But I feel like when we brush this stuff off, we're forgetting something important. When we start to think of the most out there tech as being completely natural, I mean, even these things we're in now, the ASs, there's something really off about them when you think about it."
Sosuke just looked at him, non-comprehending.
"I'm just rambling. Anyway," Kurtz began, then changed his tone. "Urus 6 here. You said you hadn't found the base commander, right? Round him up quick and get him questioned. I'm ready to head back and get some shut-eye."
"Urus 9 here. According to the hostages, the commander is..."
Corporal Yang spoke into the radio from where he was standing in front of the hostages. A few of them had gotten his attention and were pointing in the direction that the missile had come from minutes earlier.
"What the hell is it? Spit it out already."
"The commander was the guy with the missile that Kurtz just gunned down."
"Huh?"
There was a long pause, and then,
I see,"
Kurtz said awkwardly. Mao burst in.
"What did you say? Gunned down? You killed him? Why didn't you use your taser?"
"Use my taser?" Kurtz protested. "I was kind of in a hurry, you know."
"Shut up!" she screamed back. "How could you do this? We were just talking about having to take the commander in alive. You've completely ruined my debut sortie as lieutenant."
Shut up! He's an asshole who's killed countless defenseless crews. He deserved that 50 caliber justice.
"That's not the damn point. We can't interrogate a corpse."
"He fired a missile at Sosuke."
"Oh?"
Mao cried out with mock concern.
"And how'd that go for you, Sosuke?"
"Not an issue," Sosuke told her.
"Ah, you asshole,"
Kurtz put in.
"See? This is your fault,"
Mao lectured at Kurtz.
"You'd better write up one hell of a report. God damn it, Ben is gonna give me hell for when we get back. Why'd I bother busting my ass to become an officer if I still have to deal with this crap? I've made up my mind. Next time we go out drinking, everything's on you. Because of your short-sighted, simple-minded..."
"Shut up! Quit yelling at me!"
Kurtz yelled back.
You're the one who blew away a hostage target board with a 40mm shell last week at practice. That was...
Yeah, well, that was practice. This is real life. Sosuke interrupted the tedious exchange. Excuse me, I would appreciate it if we could set questions of responsibility aside and begin making preparations to leave. If we head back now, I could still make it in time for my classic literature makeup exam. Mr. Fujisaki is very strict, and I'm in danger of failing.
Stay out of this,
Part-timer! The two screamed in tandem over the radio. Sosuke fell quiet. I agree, Sergeant. It would be wise to keep our silence in this case. Al, I told you. Forgive me. I'll stop talking. For just a moment, Sosuke gave serious consideration to killing the AI while he could. Oh, thanks for tuning in, Rasma64. I started a little earlier than I've been doing. I'm on the ball for once. Don't worry about showing up late, that's not a problem. Non-issue. Especially since it's all recorded anyway. 21 December, 03:51 hours, local time. 250-meter depth, West Pacific Ocean. First briefing room, Tuach Dadanen. So, well, they were finishing up the debriefing for the pirate stronghold mission, and Melissa Mao was awkwardly explaining how the Arbalest had gotten into a game of chicken with a missile. In that instant, something bad and something good basically happened all at once, I guess. Start with the good. First Lieutenant Belfangan Clouseau, leader of the SRT ground forces, requested. Up to this point, he'd been listening silently. He was a tall black man in his 30s, dressed in fatigues, with tense eyebrows and a masculine face. Mao responded. The Arbalest's Lambda driver activated and blocked the ATM's explosion. Gave us tons of data, too. That's excellent. Well done, Sagara, even if it wasn't quite intentional. Just try to deal with them before they hit you next time, Clouseau advised. It's an unnecessary risk. Sosuke, also in fatigues, sat in his chair and nodded silently. So? Clouseau asked next, attempting to move things along. What's this something bad? The pirate's commander was the one who fired the missile, and Kurtz blew him away. He unloaded his machine gun's 12.7mm rounds, Mao looked down at her clipboard. 54 times in all, leaving no trace behind. It sounded like he'd seen that coming, and he wasn't exactly surprised, but Clouseau still closed his eyes, a vein in his forehead throbbing. Wonderful. So, Weber, how do you propose we interrogate the man you just blasted into a fine red mist? Kurtz Weber, sitting in the seat next to Sosuke, laughed hollowly. We can't. Well, we could ask a Nitako from Mount Osore, maybe, but we'd need one that can speak Chinese. I was being sarcastic, Sergeant, Clouseau growled. I'm aware of that, Lieutenant. Clouseau and Kurtz glared balefully at each other, and Mao let out a small sigh. The two men really didn't get along. To say that they'd gotten off on the wrong foot would be a vast understatement. They'd had a few sorties together since their disastrous first encounter, and she was genuinely surprised that Kurtz had never accidentally shot Clouseau in the back.
Excuse me,
Yang Jun-Q spoke up hesitantly, as if to fill the silence.
If you don't mind my saying so, it really was the only option at the time. Kurtz's M9 was just at the limit of taser range, and the smoke there was pretty thick, so that probably wouldn't have worked. There was no guarantee the enemy didn't have a second shot prepared, so he really had to dispatch him as quickly as possible.
Yang was the traditional mediator in these situations. Clouseau took that in and surveyed the room. What do the rest of you think? Everyone present, including Sosuke and Mao, signaled passive agreement, and Clouseau seemed to respect their judgment. Very well. Maybe it was unavoidable then. I'll report this to the Major. I think it's clear that the pirate base has no connection to this amalgam organization, which means we're back to square one. We're no closer to finding their base of operations than we were before.
Anything turn up in the analysis of the Venoms and the Behemoth? Mao asked.
Mithril had recovered a number of remains of amalgam-made machines from previous battles, including the Behemoth from 6 whole months earlier. It was expected that if the research and intelligence divisions analyzed them in earnest, they could identify where the parts had been made and any corporations involved in their creation. Most of the core elements from the remains are origin unknown, Clouseau answered. The non-proprietary electronic bits have a variety of origins, including some made in Western Europe and some in Japan.
No way, she protested. There can't be many factories capable of building specialized machinery like that, can there?
Not many Western factories, anyway. But they're still reviewing particulars and commonalities between the designs. But for the Venoms, at least, the pervading theory is that they are modeled on the Soviets' next-generation AS.
The Shadow? Mao questioned.
The ZY-98 Shadow, Xi, it's a lowercase y. The ZY-98 Shadow was the code name for the next-generation AS made by the Soviets' Zaya Experimental Design Bureau, the successor to the RK-92 Savage. Western militaries had only become aware of its existence a month ago, and not even Mithril knew its full particulars, but it was said to have a full electromagnetic propulsion system powered by a miniature high-output palladium reactor, and specs on par with the M9s. In other words, Clouseau was saying that the Venom was a modified Shadow. "We can't draw conclusions just yet," he cautioned them. "All we know is that, in terms of basic structure, the Venom is to Zaya's new model as the Arbalest is to the M9. At any rate, we're going to focus on that Badam keyword that Sagara heard. Although, we still can't be sure that that wasn't some nonsense Gowron was spouting just to mess with us."
"I'm certain there's something to it, sir," Sosuke insisted.
Clouseau's feeling was understandable. Clouseau's feeling was We're having a moment. Clouseau's feeling was understandable, but for some reason Sosuke couldn't convince himself that what Gowron had told him in Hong Kong meant nothing. "I know, though it could also be a trap. Best not to let our guard down either way." Clouseau mused in response, then shook his head dismissively. "Well, anyway, our job isn't information analysis, it's pest control. On any mission where there's the slightest possibility of encountering a Venom-type AS, we always have to be on the top of our game. Major Kalainen feels the same way. Remember that." The group voiced a variety of "Rogers" and "Yeah, yes." "Now, I want a report from all of you by 7 in the morning," Clouseau instructed. "Weber, you will handle the watch over the 3 pirate lieutenants we captured." They had brought the prisoners they'd taken on Badamu Island on board, where they were bound and blindfolded. The minute they arrived at Merida Island, the men would be interrogated by Operations HQ staff. "Huh? Why do I have to—" "That's an order," Clouseau said, cutting him off. "Pick PRT members to serve as the watch team and tell them what they need to know. Got it? This is all on you now. I don't want a repeat of the Perio incident." "Roger," Kurtz responded after a second. He sounded surprisingly earnest about it. Perhaps he was remembering what had happened to Clouseau's predecessor, McGowan. "All right, dismissed," Clouseau finished. "Good work today, everyone." The soldiers stood up and left the briefing room, chatting.
"Hey, Ben," Mao said to Clouseau once the others were gone.
"Yeah?"
"Why'd you make Kurtz do it?" she wanted to know. "I'd be happy to run the watch."
"He needs a little more proper NCO experience. I'm teaching him responsibility."
"Oh, I get you."
Mao nodded as if in perfect understanding. "And it's more than that," Clouseau went on. "I spoke with Major Kalainen and Colonel Testarossa. Now that you're a lieutenant, we need to promote someone from the SRT to Master Sergeant. The only options are Sagara, Sandraptor, and Weber. But Sagara is too young, and he's a part-timer, and Sandraptor's not cut out for command. Plus, that girl, Chidori Kaname, told me that McAllen's last words to Nguyen during the Perio incident were, 'Call Weber and the others.' At the time, the Major was off ship, and you were wounded. I guess the next name that came to mind was Weber's. I think Senpai might have seen something in him. Mao remained quiet. I don't like the man, but he has potential, and he cares about his comrades. Clouseau admitted. I thought I'd put him through his paces a while and see how he takes to it. Mao hummed, her lips curving up into a smile. Clouseau answered her pleased expression with a scowl. What now? He demanded. Once Clouseau was alone with her, he returned to talking like an NCO. Nothing, she protested innocently. I was thinking, you're so responsible. Get off my back. The Major isn't here most of the time, Clouseau growled back. Who's going to do it if I don't? Fair enough. We're all counting on you, Ben. Darn it. Tucking his file case under his arm with another scowl, Clouseau left the room. After returning to the SRT duty room, Sosuke opened his laptop and began composing his report. Kurtz had gone off to run hostage watch, grumbling all the while about unfairness, and that left the room quieter than usual. Sosuke was thinking that he would polish off his paperwork, and then, once they surfaced, he'd take a helicopter to Tokyo. There were more than a few members of the crew who didn't like the idea of an NCO like Sosuke getting this sort of preferential treatment, but he didn't care. His grades were on the line, and he'd gotten the clause, "can charter transport whenever reasonable," added to his contract, though the fuel cost still came out of his paycheck. Lord have mercy, if you're having to do, helicopter refueling costs. That's brutal. That's brutal. His report was about 80% finished when he felt his stomach rumble. If I go to the mess, he thought, I might find something left over. Where are you going? Where are you going? Mao, who was fooling around on her laptop as well, asked him as he stood. To eat, Sosuke answered her shortly. Gotcha. See you later. See you. As Sosuke left the duty room, he caught a glimpse of Mao reaching quickly for the onboard phone, but he didn't pay it much mind. Instead, he just climbed the nearby stairway and walked down the passage beyond. As he made it up to Deck 2, he ran into the submarine's captain, Tessa, full name Talitha Testarossa, coming around the corner of an otherwise unoccupied hall. Ah, Sagara-san, Tessa said. She was a petite, slender girl with ash-blonde hair done up in a braid. Tessa was about Sosuke's age and wore the rank of colonel on the shoulders of her khaki-colored uniform. For some reason, she sounded out of breath. Colonel. Normally, Sosuke would come to attention and salute, but he had recently learned that she hated being treated that way, so he just offered her a casual greeting instead. Are you taking a break? He inquired next. Yes, now that we're underway. I was a little bit hungry, so I left command to Mardukas-san. Tessa then turned up her eyes to meet his and said, Would you like to share a meal with me? In the galley? Yes. Escort me, if you would. Yes, ma'am, he responded. I was intending to. They walked side by side down the corridor and soon arrived at the mess hall, which was pitch black. Nobody was present in the middle of the night, and there didn't seem to be any food left. Please sit here, Tessa insisted, running to the galley. I'll cook. Sosuke quickly started. Colonel, please, let me, but managed to stop himself mid-protest. Tessa was glaring at him reproachfully. Are you suggesting that I cannot prepare food properly? No, certainly not. You always eat what Kaname-san prepares, she pointed out, and Sosuke fell silent. While he groped around for an answer, Tessa giggled. It's all right, she said, but please try my cooking for once. Yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to. In the past, nerves and awkwardness would have overtaken him, and he'd have said something like, No, I really should make it myself, or allow me to assist you at least. But, well, maybe it's not so bad, Sosuke decided, and then sat down at a table. It sounds like things were difficult on Badamu Island, Tessa called out from the galley. Not at all, Sosuke replied. It was an easy mission. He heard the refrigerator door open and close, followed by the sound of cooking tools being pulled out and placed back.
But you used the Lambda driver, didn't you?
Tessa wanted to know. My apologies, he answered. If I'd been more careful, things wouldn't have come to that.
All's well that ends well. Are you growing accustomed to the arbalest, then?
Yes, but Al's turned into a chatterbox, and I don't know what to do about it, Sosuke admitted ruefully. He just says one useless thing after another. I've never heard of a control system like it.
He's not a control system, Tessa clarified.
What?
Didn't I tell you before? The arbalest is an extension of you, she explained. Al is how you might have turned out if you had been raised in a different environment.
That's a horrible thing to say. Sosuke objected with a grimace, then heard the chopping on the cutting board suddenly come to a stop.
Oh, I'm sorry,
she called back with a note of surprise. Sosuke cringed, realizing he'd said something rude in the heat of the moment. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have.
It's all right, Tessa said reassuringly. After all, you were speaking to me like you would to Melissa and Weber-san.
I was?
Yes, I found that rather pleasing, she giggled.
It feels strange for me, Sosuke admitted.
And for me as well. Very strange.
Regardless, Tessa sounded delighted. The food preparation went on for a while. Sosuke heard something get mixed together in a bowl, something boiled in a pot, something fried up in a pan. This had been the tone of their interactions for about 6 months now. Tessa, who had once seemed like an otherworldly being, was now someone Sosuke felt quite close to. He couldn't claim he didn't enjoy her attentions either. Tessa was a very appealing girl, and he liked that she was willing to engage him this way. And in moments like these, with her eyes pointed down studiously as she focused on her cooking, Tessa reminded him of Kaname.
It's finished.
Tessa came out of the kitchen carrying a large dish of pasta.
It's spaghetti carbonara, she explained. I frequently make it for myself after work.
Tessa piled the pasta onto a small dish using a fork and spoon. The steaming dish was coated in thick cheese and cream sauce, and fragrant with pepper and garlic.
It's quite easy to make, she went on. I find it easier than Kalainen-san's borscht, at least. I'm sure you'll like it.
I'm glad to hear it, Sosuke said pointlessly, before bringing a forkful of pasta to his mouth. Suddenly, his eyes opened wide. It really is. Very good. The moment he'd said so, Tessa scrunched up her shoulders and flashed a V sign.
Ah, all my training paid off. Now Kaname-san's lost her sneaky advantage,
she whispered to no one in particular. Sosuke stared up at her suspiciously. What?
Oh, nothing. Go on, eat up.
Ah. Though still dubious, Sosuke continued downing the pasta. His empty stomach helped. Tessa watched him eat for a while, enraptured. Then she said,
Sakura-san, would you like more?
One sec. Cover art change. Let's go.
Please. Sosuke typically didn't stuff himself, but he found himself holding the dish out for more. If they had had a mission coming up, he might have refrained. They weren't supposed to fight on a full stomach. It slowed your reaction times and raised the chances that a bullet to the gut would prove fatal. But they were currently on board their submarine, so that was probably unlikely. As long as Kurtz doesn't make some stupid mistake on watch duty, at least.
Is it very good?
Tessa asked again, interrupting his thoughts. Yes, he told her. It's very good.
I'm so glad,
Tessa grinned. Is that what people mean when they say a radiant smile? Sosuke wondered idly. He felt warmed by the sight, and at the same time slightly guilty.
Now, were you aware that next week is Christmas? She asked hesitantly, changing the subject.
I'm unfamiliar with the specifics, Sosuke answered, but it does appear that way.
Do you know what the 24th is?
she asked curiously. I've heard it's a custom known as Christmas Eve. Sosuke knew that Christmas was a Christian custom, but as someone who had fought with an Islamic mujahideen, it had little meaning to him. He was actually much more conscious of Ramadan, which was beginning 3 days before it this year. To Sosuke, Christmas was primarily a period when the alertness of his enemy to Sosuke, Christmas was primarily a period when the alertness of his enemy in his Afghani days, the Soviets, was reduced, and nothing more. Why is she bringing up Christmas? Sosuke wondered, and found himself tensing up a bit. He was fairly certain that Tessa was a Catholic, and while he didn't think that she was about to engage him in a religious debate, the topic still made him vaguely uneasy. I see. You really don't know, she mused. Huh? Nothing. Well, Sagara-san. Tessa said hesitantly. Yes? On the 24th, the squadron is going to hold a party together, you know, and I was going to hold a smaller secondary celebration in my room afterwards, with Melissa and some of the others. Would you like to join us? Tessa's eyes, brimming with sincerity, now gazed into his. On the 24th? He clarified. Yes. Sosuke fell silent. He felt uncertain because that was the day of the school's make-up trip. He'd just finished declaring that he'd take all measures necessary to ensure the class's safety. Then again, he also didn't get many chances to deepen his friendship with Tessa, who was typically a very busy person. These last few months, he'd vaguely become aware of her affection for him. It might be cruel to dismiss her invitation out of hand. She spoke into the silence. I suppose you're all too busy with school? No, it's not that. It's just a bit... As Sosuke struggled to form a response, he suddenly heard hurried footsteps in the corridor outside. Hey! Hey! Sounding panicked, Mao burst into the mess. The last time he'd seen her, she'd been using her laptop to investigate something, so he assumed it must be related to that. What is it, Mao? Sosuke asked. Sosuke, you speak Persian, right? A bit, he told her. The Afghani dialect, anyway. What about it? For some reason, Sosuke's response caused Mao to groan. Then why didn't you catch on sooner? Sheesh! Sosuke tilted his head questioningly. That Badam thing you mentioned. I've been looking into it, Mao explained impatiently. I was running it through various languages. Gowron might know, given what we know about his history. Do you know what the word romanized as Badame means in English? Sosuke was a bit taken aback by the suddenness of the question, but he did offer a word he knew. I think it means almond? No, that's B-A-D-A-M. What if you add an E at the end? I don't know, Sosuke admitted, feeling a bit bad about his answer. When he'd lived in Afghanistan, he'd used Tajik and Farsi, the Afghani dialect of Persian, daily. He also knew some conversational Pakistani Pashto. Afghanistan was a country of diverse cultures, after all. The reason Sosuke knew so many languages wasn't due to any particular talent in that regard. He just lived in that region during the age when the brain was open to learning such things, and he'd naturally picked them up. Still, his Farsi had gotten very rusty by now, and he'd never been able to read or write it. He could only write in English, Japanese, and a tiny bit of Russian. So, what does it mean if it's Badame? Sosuke asked suspiciously. Tessa, who could speak close to 10 languages fluently but didn't appear to know Persian, stared at Mao as well. She mainly looked hurt about the fact that her dinner time had been so rudely interrupted. Chrysalis, Mao burst out. It means chrysalis. Hmm? Sosuke asked. December 1537 hours, Japan Standard Time. Jindai High School, Tokyo. Hey, Sagara-kun. Oh, shoot, did I just press... No, I didn't turn it off.
Was grabbing my bookmark.
Hey, Sagara-kun.
After school was over for the day, Sosuke's classmate Tokiwa Kyoko approached him.
Did you know that Kana-chan's birthday is the 24th?
Her question was met with silence.
Hello? Earth to Sosuke?
Oh, that's right, Sosuke responded awkwardly. He wasn't in the habit of celebrating birthdays, so even though he'd seen Kaname's noted in her profile prior to his infiltration of the school, it had completely slipped his mind. He'd also ended up making plans with Mithril for that day. Ignoring Sosuke's sudden discomfort about his oversight, Kyoko continued.
You're coming on that cruise with us, right? I figured we'd put together a big surprise for Kana-chan to wish her a happy birthday.
She cast a glance at Kaname, who was on the other side of the classroom, clapping erasers out the window.
See, I think she's not expecting to get anything this year, so the timing is perfect. I was thinking we'd all buy her flowers. You want to chip in?
Chip in? Sosuke questioned.
You don't know what that means? It means we all put in a little money for the whole, Kyoko explained. In this case, 300 yen each. Please?
Give or take, that's about $3 in Amerikansky Monopoly money. I see. I'll pay the money, Sosuke promised. But? Sosuke hesitated, gripping his wallet. I'm sorry, but I won't be going on the cruise. Something else came up.
You won't be coming?
Kyoko asked in shock.
But you were all worked up about it. You said you were going to come loaded for bear this time.
Well, Sosuke dissembled.
Plus, it's Kana-chan's birthday.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I've made other plans.
Jeez, Kana-chan's going to be crushed, you know,
Kyoko told him. It's unavoidable, Sosuke said shortly.
What'll you be doing instead?
Of course, Kyoko didn't know about Mithril. None of the students of Jindai High did. I'm very sorry, but I can't tell you. Just then, Kaname strolled up to them. She laid down the erasers on the blackboard nearby and then started arranging the chalk.
What's going on here?
She asked casually. Huh? Wrong person.
Huh? Nothing.
Kyoko's protestations just made her more curious.
Seriously, what is it? Never mind. But did you hear, Kana-chan? Sagara-kun isn't coming on the cruise. Sucks, huh?
Kyoko said, fists balled, as she forced a change of subject. This announcement caused Kaname to suddenly cease her chalk arrangements.
Oh, really?
She said coldly. There are mitigating circumstances, Sosuke said, trying to explain himself. I'm sorry.
I wonder why you feel the need to apologize to me,
Kaname mused. Sosuke's eyes opened in surprise. Well, I
mean, it sounds good to me, she went on. Things will be quieter with you gone anyhow. I guess it's some kind of mission or whatever, so Merry Christmas and all that. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine.
Actually,
You just what? You just what?
The power of Kaname's side-eye caused Sosuke to falter. He couldn't bring up Mithril with Kyoko standing right there.
Wow, she went on icily. Something so important you can't even tell me, huh? Well, I'm sure it's none of my business anyway. Bye, I guess. Don't expect a souvenir, okay?
Then she strode out of the room. Kyoko, watching the exchange, let out a deep sigh.
I told you. See? You totally bummed her out.
It does appear that way, Sosuke said, feeling greasy sweat rise on his temples. But I don't understand. Why was she so upset?
Why do you think? Kyoko retorted. It's her birthday. She's sad that you won't be coming. She just won't admit it because she's stubborn and full of herself. Come on, it's not that hard.
Sosuke understood every word in Kyoko's statement, but its meaning as a whole remained elusive. I don't quite understand, he admitted. Are birthdays that important?
Yes, and you'd better not forget it.
Understood, he said, acknowledging the point.
But regardless, I'm not free that day. I'm sorry. Kyoko's pigtails drooped.
Okay, got some party to go to, huh?
Party? I suppose so, Sosuke reflected. It is a party, in a sense. My party plans became another kind of party. Kyoko shot him a curious look. Ah, it's nothing, he said hastily. After class, Kaname headed for the shopping street near Sengawa Station. She entered a teen-oriented shop that sold cute stuffed animals and such, and while she was hunting for Bonta-kun goods, a nearby man approached her. He looked like a white-collar worker. "Hello, my dear. Would you like to join me this evening?" the man said, somewhat awkwardly.
Get lost, asshole.
"Don't be like that. I'll treat you to something nice." This line, too, was entirely without commitment. It caused Kaname to snort in derision, but she still said,
Good, you remembered the password.
"Couldn't you pick a less awkward time and location?" the man asked, his voice low.
This is fine, Kaname told him. It means I'll never mistake you for someone else.
"But it's so unnatural," the man complained. "The things my bosses would say if they knew we were making contact like this."
Don't tell them, Kaname suggested flippantly. Then they won't find out.
She cast another glance at the man, who was an agent with Mithril's intelligence division. His code name was Wraith, and his mission was the monitoring and protection of Kaname, though she had her doubts about the protection part. He seemed to be a master of disguise, and looked different each time she saw him. Sometimes a well-to-do older woman, sometimes a young freelancer, sometimes a middle-aged white-collar worker, a 40-something housewife, a construction worker, an insurance salesman, anything you could imagine. Kaname didn't even know for sure if he was really a man.
But I gotta say, this is another awesome disguise, she told him.
Kaname found Wraith's disguise skills extremely impressive. He could even change his voice at will.
Why not ditch the whole lonely spy racket, she suggested. I bet you could make real money in show business.
Butt out. Wraith slumped over, seemingly annoyed by her comment.
I'm sorry if that struck a nerve.
Maybe he really had tried to make a life in show business at some point. Oh, that's a question mark. Maybe he really had tried to make a life in show business at some point? But the world had proved too harsh a mistress, and his dreams had been shattered, and he'd been reduced to living the life of a spy for a shady organization. Kaname found herself imagining it, unprompted, and gave him a sympathetic look.
I didn't mean to be insensitive, really.
The spy sized her up suspiciously. Are you imagining something very offensive right now?
Of course not, Kaname protested. Everyone has their circumstances. Cheer up.
For some reason, I don't like your tone.
Besides, you get to do some artistic expression in this job, too, Kaname nattered on.
I told you, he finally burst out. I don't want to be in show business. This was more or less how all of Kaname's interactions with Wraith had gone lately. No matter who she was dealing with, be they mercenary or spy, she seemed to have a real talent for disrupting another person's rhythm. Kaname called on Wraith whenever she wanted to know something, and sometimes just when she was bored. He and Sosuke hadn't actually met yet. Wraith had stubbornly insisted against it, and they'd reached an agreement that she wouldn't call him out when Sosuke was nearby. From the way each of them walked, Kaname had a vague idea that some bad blood existed between Wraith of the Intelligence Division and Sosuke of the Operations Division.
So, did you look into it?
Kaname asked, broaching the subject she'd had in mind. Somewhat. I'm not privy to everything that happens in the Operations Division, so I can't be sure, but the Tuach de Danon Battle Group currently have no operations scheduled around Christmas that we know of, Wraith told her reluctantly, though they do appear to be preparing for a party of some kind.
I see,
Kaname's mood plummeted. She'd thought maybe the reason Sosuke wasn't coming on the cruise was because he had a mission with Mithril, but if there was nothing scheduled... Had he canceled their trip to go to some party with his squad, then? It was understandable that he'd prefer to spend his time with the people he faced danger with daily, and with her. She could have just questioned him about it, of course, but with their friendship in an awkward place right now, Kaname had found that she couldn't lay into him as aggressively as she once had.
What kind of party is it, I wonder?
She mused, mostly to herself. How should I know? Wraith retorted, sounding surly. You should be more concerned about this makeup class trip of yours.
Did you look into that, too?
Kaname asked next. Yes, according to our analysis, the ship should be safe, Wraith confirmed. Its background is clean, though there's no guarantee the enemy won't try a repeat of Sunan.
A sea-jacking, you mean?
She clarified. Yes, but the chances of that are extremely low. I believe the enemy organization has learned its lesson about the incredible mobility, power, and covertness of the TDD. They probably won't try to abduct you like that again. But the trade-off there is... Wraith paused.
Is? What?
Well, it means that you're much more likely to be targeted in your everyday life, he admitted reluctantly. Kaname said nothing. But they haven't come after you yet, Wraith went on, so we can assume they're biding their time. They may be confident that they can dispatch both myself and Uru-7 at any time that they want to, and abduct you then.
You seem very unconcerned about that,
Kaname observed. I'm just stating the facts.
You guys are biding your time with me, too, right?
Wraith fell silent, as he always did when this subject came up.
Trying to restrain her...
Oh, that's not character voice. Trying to restrain her nervousness, Kaname spoke again, her words pointed.
If you ask me, you Intelligence Division guys are as shady as the enemy. And outside of Sosuke and Tessa, the operations higher-ups seem pretty questionable, too.
Your doubts are understandable, Chidori Kaname. I hope you can trust in my good faith as well. Wraith sighed. I would be in deep trouble if the top brass knew I was contacting you one-on-one like this.
I appreciate it, Kaname told him sincerely. You should drop by my house sometime, by the way. I'll whip up a little thank you meal. You like hot pot?
I love her Korean hot pot. Wait, did you hear what I just said?
Yeah. Don't call unless it's an emergency, etc. I get it, okay?
Good grief. Wraith let out another sigh. Then he turned and began to walk away from Kaname, but he paused once more on his way and said, Anyway, be careful on the trip. I'll be infiltrating the passenger roster just to be safe.
Oh, okay. Thanks,
Kaname said, while wondering what he would be dressed up as this time. As she watched Wraith leave the shop, she tried to imagine the cruise without Sosuke.
I guess he does find Mithril more important than me.
Now, in a melancholy mood, she left the shop without buying anything. The air outside was cold, and her breath came in white puffs. These were the shortest days of the year, and the sky was already pitch black, but the shopping street was still bustling. Christmas songs played, and the place was lively with chatter and laughter.
Huh,
she exclaimed softly as she caught sight of Sosuke standing in front of an old shoe store across the street from the shop she'd just left. He slowly walked toward her through the throng. Her first thought, rather than consider that he'd seen her meet with Wraith, was to wonder if he'd decided to go on the cruise after all.
What are you doing over there?
Her response came out curtly, despite herself. I was waiting for you to come out. A suspicious man entered the store and then left. But it appears you were unharmed, Sosuke said.
Of course I was, she retorted. Put that stupid gun away.
Sosuke returned the gun he was holding, hidden behind his bag, to the holster under his jacket. He hadn't recognized Wraith then, or perhaps he had suspicions, but nothing more. Of course, Sosuke wasn't stupid. Wraith's disguises were just a cut above. Kaname had been getting the better of him lately, but he appeared to be quite an excellent agent otherwise. He really did seem to disappear into a crowd. Even Sosuke, who was very sensitive to hostile intent even Sosuke, who was very sensitive to hostile intent around him, seemed to have a duller antenna where Wraith was concerned, when the spy wasn't actively antagonizing him, at least. Kaname started walking, and Sosuke followed her from behind. "Chidori," he began. "What? Are you hiding something from me?" Ever since Hong Kong, I've had the sense that... No, perhaps it's my imagination." Sosuke seemed to have a nebulous idea that Kaname was keeping something from him, and in fact she was, both her meetings with Wraith and her encounter with the young man, Leonard, 2 months ago while he was gone. Kaname did intend to tell him about Wraith when she had the chance. She'd been halfway serious about her offer of hot pot earlier. She wanted to get Wraith and Sosuke to sit down together so she could show off her cooking. Wraith didn't seem like a bad guy, and things could only get better if he and Sosuke could make peace. There was no way she could tell him about Leonard, though. She had explained about the assassin attacking her in the hotel district, and told him that someone else had finished the assassin off. She'd also brought up the robots she'd seen then. But what she and that someone else had talked about, and what he'd done to her, those were things that Kaname could never bring herself to say. So far, Sosuke hadn't pressed her about it either. Today was the first time he'd voiced his suspicions. The near miss with Wraith might have really made him nervous. "You think I'm hiding something?" she asked innocently. "Well, perhaps it's not hiding, exactly. But are you keeping something to yourself?" "No, you're the one keeping something from me, right?" For some reason, Kaname couldn't keep the comment from sounding barbed. "Me?" Sosuke asked. "About Christmas," she clarified. Why aren't you going on the makeup trip?" "I have a mission." "You liar," Kaname thought. "You're going to a party with Mithril. You'll all have fun while things get serious between you and that girl, right? I didn't think you were such a liar, but I guess 8 months living in Japan was time enough to learn how to be a snake." "Yeah, okay," she said out loud. "A mission. Everything's a mission. Why don't you go marry Miss Mission, then?" "I don't understand that," Sosuke said, sounding genuinely confused. "If you have something to say to me, can't you explain it in more concrete terms?" "Are you being serious right now?" Kaname glared at Sosuke. You think you can always get out of things by playing dumb? Well, you're wrong, because I know everything." Sosuke was baffled. "I don't understand, but I wanted to tell you something that—" "Oh, shut up," she yelled. "I don't want to hear it." "Chidori, stay away from me. I'm sick of you." "This is so typical," Sosuke fumed. "Why do you—" "I said this conversation is over," Kaname said brusquely. Then, brushing through the crowds, she strode away from Sosuke. Self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. Thank you so much, Rasma64. I would have probably figured that out if I really set my brain to it. I knew it was an anti-aircraft gun, but I didn't know it was self-propelled. The SP should have twigged me to it. Thanks. That night, it was needless to say that Kaname regretted her words, as usual, but even repeating their exchange in her head dozens of times, she couldn't stop being angry. What the hell is his problem? She kept thinking. And, as usual, that was where her thought process stopped. All of his charms, which usually came to mind easily, disappeared, leaving only negative thoughts behind. After all, he's completely inconsiderate, and the way he thinks that he can play dumb to get out of trouble proves that he thinks I'm stupid.
Kaname reasoned. Actually, when I really think about it, he can't really be that stupid, can he? Maybe that was just a character he's been playing from the start. If that's the case, he's the biggest creep ever, the absolute worst. I can't believe I fell for him, even for a second. I'm so glad I didn't confess to him in the heat of the moment. Every single man is a con artist anyway. Every word out of their mouths is a lie to make themselves look good. They're crafty, evil, super energy beings, and you can't trust them for a second. Yeah, there's no way I'll ever date a man, she told herself fiercely, especially not him. I hate you, Sosuke. Over the next few days, Kaname barely spoke to Sosuke. He'd approached her reluctantly a few times, but Kaname wouldn't give him the time of day. He sent her emails on her PHS, but she deleted them without a glance. He'd ask her, "Did you see my email?" And she'd say, "Yeah, I saw it. Go away now," and brush him off. It wasn't unusual as far as fights between them went. But this time, their quarrel would cause a minor panic. Where did I leave? Yeah, we could keep going for a bit longer, why not? One sec, let me find my arbitrary stopping point.
It's most clever. Is it breakpoint between page? I will never know.
Don't bang the mic. It doesn't like that. Mostly people listening aren't gonna like that. Alright, and we have cover image change number 2, and then a third one coming up in like 2 pages. Whoa! Which one are you? Insert 2, I think. Bummed out, Chidori Kaname is bummed out. Chapter 2. O Noisy Night. 24 December, 14:01 hours, Japan Standard Time. Port of Yokohama, Yokohama. It was a 5-minute bus ride from JR Sakuragimachi Station to Shinko Pier. Situated next to a seaside park packed with couples at twilight, this was where the Pacific Chrysalis was currently docked. Its hull was glittering white, an array of artistically curved funnels and intricately layered passenger decks. The Pacific Chrysalis was massive. At 272 meters long and 100,000 tons, it was one of the largest cruise ships in the world. Outside of a handful of Caribbean luxury liners that were even larger, there were few in the world that rivaled this one for size. Mithril's amphibious assault submarine, the Tuatha De Danann, was about the only ship on this scale that Kaname had ever been on, and the Pacific Chrysalis seemed to dwarf even that. It was like an entire city set afloat. Since that military vessel was Kaname's only prior seagoing experience, the amenities of the Pacific Chrysalis now seemed unspeakably extravagant. The interior, too, was vastly more spacious than the submarines had been, with cabins and corridors reminiscent of a hotel. "Certainly fancy in here," Kaname whispered idly, as she laid her luggage on the bed of her cabin. Her roommate, Kyoko, responded in excitement. "Yeah, it sure is. Did you see that lobby we passed through when we boarded? It was so big and beautiful I couldn't believe it. And the captain and the live music there to welcome us, that was really something else." They had just come aboard with their classmates and teachers. Most of the crew that had greeted them as they came up the gangway were foreigners. They seemed friendly and courteous, and Kyoko and the teachers all seemed to find it thrilling. But Kaname couldn't help but feel like something was off. She couldn't shake the sense that a few of the crew seemed to recognize her in some meaningful way. Their expressions seemed to say, "Ah, she's the one," as if they'd known she would be here, or rather, that they knew what fate was in store for her here. It was subtle, just a slight tension on their faces, followed by an exchange of glances,
and then cheery smiles as if nothing had happened.
No, you're being stupid, she decided.
After all, their last field trip had been in the news, and she stood out even among her classmates as the last one saved. Of course, the captain and the crew would know about her.
Hey, Kana-chan,
Said Kyoko, interrupting her thoughts.
Let's head up topside before we leave port. They say the observation deck has a great view of the Minato Mirai wheel. Sure, Kaname agreed. Actually, I'm pretty hungry, too. You bring any snacks? Sorry, Kyoko told her apologetically. I ate with Shiori-chan and the others while we were waiting to board earlier. I heard Mayu-chan brought Pocky, though. Maybe get some from her? Oh, yeah? I'd better confiscate it. She's been putting on weight lately. Wow, that's mean.
Kaname left Kyoko behind, cackling. There were a few female students hanging around in the brightly lit corridor, chatting boisterously.
Figures,
Kaname reflected. Their class weren't the only ones on board, and they'd been warned in homeroom several times not to make trouble for the other passengers. Yet here they were already. Kaname's instincts as class representative took over, and she was about to scold the students when... Oh, yeah, here we go.
Give me a goddamn break,
Came a man's voice. The words were in English, the voice deep and forceful in a way that let it easily boom over the girls' laughter. A large Caucasian man in a suit was chewing out a member of the crew, who was looking a little put out by it all. Kaname found herself thinking the man looked a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he did comedy movies.
You can't stick me in a B-class cabin with these landlubber girls, he objected.
I'm sorry, sir, the crew member apologized, but the A-class cabins are all full.
Then get me a private suite, you ICBM dunderhead. Is this how you treat a commander in the United States Navy?
The large man demanded to know.
Got something against me, do you? You're with the Air Force, aren't you?
Sir?
You're with the Air Force, aren't you?
Sir? Stop this, Captain. You're embarrassing yourself. This is exactly why your wife ran out on This is exactly why your wife ran off right before you left for Japan.
A handsome young man of East Asian descent, apparently companion to the angry Schwartzy, clung to the man to try to hold him back. He was wearing a suit, too.
What was that, Takanaka, you incompetent XO? You could show a little gratitude for my inviting you here in Eliza's place.
How dare you? Takanaka fumed back. I was having the time of my life on Waikiki Beach when you dragged me off by force.
Oh, please, the captain returned. That curvy Japanese broad you were chatting up, she was probably crawling with STDs. You should be thanking me.
Damn you! I had a good thing going, and now it's all down the drain.
Shut up! Serves you right, spat the captain. You can't be off enjoying your vacation while your superior officer is wrestling with divorce. You should suffer with me.
That was your real motive, wasn't it? Takanaka said accusingly. I'll bet it was, damn it.
The men began to grapple in the hallway, right in front of the crewman. Another crewman ran up to assist, and with a combination of verbal coaxing and physical force, they eventually got the two into their passenger cabin. Then the door closed, and the corridor fell silent. The students who didn't know English could only stare, dumbfounded. Having lived abroad for so long, Kaname had understood the entire conversation, but...
All kinds of people aboard this ship, huh?
She whispered, then hurried off to find her friend's room. That's right. They're back! If you remember from, I think, Book 2, they showed up. 24 December, 1855 hours. Pacific Chrysalis, near Miura Peninsula, Pacific Ocean. The cruise ship soon left port and passed through the Uraga Channel on its way out of Tokyo Bay. The sun had already set, and a canvas of stars now hung over the quietly cruising white ship. The students had gathered on the quarterdeck to watch the scenery and enjoy some innocent horseplay. The cold, clear air was refreshing. The waves glittered around them, and the sight of fishing boats and merchant ships passing by were met with great interest.
Wow, it's so pretty, Kyoko said, leaning on the railing as she clicked away with her digital camera. It doesn't feel right, though, huh? Not having Sagara-kun here with us? Do we have to talk about that guy? Kaname asked grumpily.
Kyoko winced at this predictable response.
Gah, typical Kana-chan. But for real, how's it going? How's what going? Kaname replied. You and Sagara-kun, just spill it already. I swear I won't tell.
She sounded pretty serious, and Kaname had a hard time saying no when asked this directly. Besides, it was hard to keep up her prickly demeanor around her best friend.
Well, Kaname said. Just say it. Go on.
Behind her thick glasses, Kyoko's large eyes shone. Kaname let out a small sigh, then gave up and admitted the truth.
I like him okay, I guess, but there's really nothing between us. Really? Yeah, we've had a few close calls, but that's really it, she insisted. I mean, can't you tell? Today's my birthday, and he's off with someone else.
Sosuke, as promised, had skipped the trip. Everyone in the class teased him the day before. "Ah, but you said you'd handle security." To this he had responded with utmost gravity, "I'm afraid I have an irreconcilable conflict." But then he'd offered this advice. "If a seajacking does occur, don't resist. As long as you're peaceful, the terrorists won't hurt you. Understand? Just do everything you're told." The words seemed pregnant with meaning, but Kaname had just sat in a corner of the classroom, indifferent to the exchange. They were still fighting, after all.
You'd think he'd come with us, right? She asked now. If he were serious about me, he wouldn't skip out. I see. Well, maybe you're right, Kyoko admitted. I know I can be stubborn about a lot of things, and I know it's not right, but I really don't think he cares about me that much, Kaname told her friend gloomily. Maybe not, or maybe you just might be paranoid. I so am not, Kaname retorted. I just think there's another girl he likes better. Oh, really? Who is it? Anyone I know?
Kyoko suddenly looked extremely curious.
Yeah, remember the girl who did a stint at our school, start of the second term? Oh, Tessa-chan,
Kyoko asked. Oh, that's a question mark, not an exclamation point. Am I blind?
Oh, Tessa-chan?
Kyoko asked. The students of Jindai High School knew Tessa quite well. If the Tuach de Dannen had taken a lot of damage during the Perio incident, which had put it in dry dock for several weeks starting from the end of August, Tessa had decided to use that time to take a long vacation, which she'd opted to spend at Jindai High School in Tokyo. Perhaps, Kaname had thought, she'd wanted a taste of ordinary high school life. Thus, she and Mao had barged their way into Sosuke's apartment, joined Class 2-4 under the pretext of being exchange students on a study abroad, and spent 2 weeks turning student life upside down. Obviously, no one had brought up the fact that Tessa was really a colonel with Mithril. I think that all happens in the side stories. Most of that, anyway. So those are technically included. I'm not going through them at this point. I might do that later. I haven't read the majority of the side stories. So there's a bunch of those I'd need to catch up on first.
She's in Australia right now, right?
Kyoko went on.
I guess they're still in touch. Then the party Sagara-kun went to is... Yeah, Kaname said. I think he went to be with her.
That was her assumption based on Wraith's testimony, at least. Sosuke's claim about a mission was just an excuse. She sighed as she imagined the grand party probably unfolding on Merida Island right now. All the crew would drink and sing and party, and things would start to get romantic between Sosuke and Tessa, and... Kaname realized her mood was plummeting.
Oh, who cares? Subject closed, she shouted to the night sky. Sorry, Kyoko said awkwardly. Hey, it's not your fault. But come on, we're here, right? Let's forget that jerk and have fun.
Kaname paused, realizing something.
Actually, you gotta watch. How long until the big banquet thing? I'm seriously starving. Didn't you get a snack from Mayu-chan? It was all gone by the time I got there. Ugh.
Just then, she heard a voice address her from behind. And if you bear with me a sec, I've got yet another cover change. Insert 3, and away we go.
Excuse me, Chidori Kaname-san?
It was a member of the ship's crew, a Caucasian man, a little over 40. He's a very old 40. He had a nicely trimmed beard and wore a stark white uniform and hat. His posture was ramrod straight, but he didn't seem pompous. He had exactly the amount of dignity you'd want to see in the crew of a luxury liner.
Huh? Yeah?
So it is you. I saw you from a distance and wondered, okay, let me introduce myself.
The crew member said in fluent Japanese, with barely a trace of accent.
I'm Stephen Harris, the ship's captain. A pleasure.
He comported himself like the proverbial gentleman officer. Compared to him, the Dedanan senior staff all seemed exceptionally plain.
The captain?
Kaname and Kyoko said at once. Kaname remembered now, seeing his face on the pamphlet they'd gotten before they left. She also thought she'd caught sight of him among the crew that had welcomed them on board.
Thank you very much for having us. Could I maybe ask how you know me?
Kaname started with the natural question.
When we met you with your teacher last week, she brought pictures of your class and showed us yours. See, it was the same picture on your ID card.
He pointed to the ID card pinned to her uniform, which had her name and portrait printed on it, just like every other student aboard.
You're the leading lady of the hijacking incident, the one we were all praying for, start to finish, so I was a bit curious to meet you.
Ah, I see.
Of course, I didn't expect you to be so beautiful in person, Captain Harris went on. I couldn't be more pleased. Oh, and your friend is charming too, of course.
Thanks.
Kaname and Kyoko both flashed him ingratiating smiles.
So, what do you think of my ship? He wanted to know. Are all your needs being met?
Oh, totally. It's the picture of luxury, Kaname gushed. It's big, it's beautiful, and the sailing is really smooth.
I'm glad to hear it, Captain Harris told her. If you need absolutely anything, please let my staff know, and we'll deal with it at once. You're an important guest, after all. Yes, a very important guest.
Kaname froze in silence. His words were perfectly polite, but she couldn't help sensing something off about them. There was something kind of coaxing, almost wheedling about his tone. The captain's eyes were those of a man gazing at prey in a cage and asking,
Now, what shall I do with you?
What is it about him that makes me think that? She wondered.
Kana-chan? Kyoko asked. Kyoko said,
Huh? You drifted off for a minute. What's up? Nothing. You're overthinking it. Just jumping at shadows.
Kaname told herself, then gave an awkward laugh.
Ha! Oh, it's nothing. We appreciate it, Captain.
Well, then, I hope you have a fine stay. Enjoy your voyage,
Captain Harris said, and then left them behind.
Whew.
Kaname and Kyoko exhaled after they watched him leave.
Boy, talk about nerve-wracking, Kaname muttered. Yeah, Kyoko agreed. He's really handsome, though, right? Strength and elegance in one. Major captain vibes. Yeah, true. Totally different from another captain I know. Huh? Oh, nothing,
Kaname said dismissively. Just then, they heard a clamor in the distance.
And of course, Twitch is bombarding me with the weekly cheap viewers on whogivesacrap.org.ru or something, I don't know.
Begone, banished to the realm of nothing, extirpated from the Jupiter sphere.
Oh boy. Unfortunately, that particular phrase has been added to my lexicon, much to my chagrin. Someday I'll tell you all about the book series Bio of a Space Tyrant. I will probably never read it on stream. It is far too trashy. Let's just say there's incest and leave it at that, and a very horny main character, and it's pretty rough. It's not great. I got it thinking it was one thing, and learned it was otherwise, and was like, oh God, no, why are you, no, stop, down boy, you're 80, what are you doing? Anyway. Oh, nothing, Kaname said dismissively. Just then they heard a clamor in the distance. Captain Harris had been heading back into the ship when a female cabin crew member had bumped into him, then tripped and turned over a mop and bucket. Sorry. The crew member apologized fervently. She wore a frilly skirt accented by a white apron, black tights, and a hard plastic headband over her hair. Ash blonde hair, done in a neat braid, Kaname thought, but she couldn't see the girl's face from her current position. They were too far away to hear the conversation, but Captain Harris seemed to chide the petite crew member, who bowed emphatically back to him. Then she picked up the cleaning implements, ran towards the prow in a panic, then tripped and fell spectacularly again. Kaname watched the scene unfold, her suspicions churning. What the heck? What a clumsy maid, Kyoko muttered. Meanwhile, Kaname's suspicion grew to a near surety, and she found cold sweat rising on her back. There's no way. I mean, what would she be doing on this ship? That wouldn't be the only suspicious sight she would see. It had gotten cold outside, so the girls went back in to tour the various onboard facilities. In the corridor in front of the bar lounge, she saw a young bartender hitting on a group of female students. He was a handsome young man with long blonde hair tied in a tail, and thin-rimmed glasses over his blue eyes. The pretty boy was speaking in fluent Japanese. Yeah, I mean it. I was raised in Edogawa, Tokyo. I know a great soba place, so if you give me your phone number, I'll call you when I'm off work. Aw, come on, the girl giggled noncommittally. Hey, new blood, don't hit on the...
Hey, no blood, don't hit on the passengers.
Ah, fine,
The young bartender muttered, the veteran crew members scolding, returning him to the work at hand. As she watched him walk away, Kyoko whispered, There's something weirdly familiar about that guy. Really? Kaname asked, her tone growing more and more awkward. You're sure you're not just imagining it? Most foreigners look alike anyway. Now let's go somewhere else. They walked for a while and peeked into a casino hall. They'd only just left port, but the passengers with a mind to gamble were already gathered around the roulette wheel. The dealer was a beautiful East Asian woman. She looked to be in her mid-20s, with a slender face and short black hair. She was wearing glasses, too. Okay, place your bets. Place your bets and no regrets, she sang out. Place 'em fast or your time has passed. It felt less like roulette and more like a period drama's game of odds and evens, but most of the customers were laughing and placing their chips on the board nonetheless. I feel like I've seen her before, too, Kyoko said. Paralyzed, Kaname just responded, Let's go. She didn't know what else to say. What's going on this ship? She wondered. Maybe after she and Kyoko parted ways, she'd pull one of them aside and give them a full grilling. Yeah, that's just what I'll have to do. But just as they left the casino and she'd made up her mind, their homeroom teacher, Kagarazaka Eri, came running up to them.
Hey, you two! Didn't you hear the announcement? It's time for dinner. All Jindai students meet up in the grand ballroom.
Kaname suddenly realized that the students and passengers who'd previously been swarming the ship's halls were now nowhere to be seen.
Right.
No choice, she decided, following after Kyoko and Eri to head for the grand ballroom where the banquet would be held. The grilling would have to wait. After his personal greeting to Kaname, Captain Harris spent a little time looking around, making sure everything was ship-shape. It was, of course. This was his ship, and he was very scrupulous about safety. He didn't want any problems or malfunctions happening here, especially tonight, with such an important event coming up.
Captain.
The engine room chief caught up with Harris in the hallway. He was Colombian, just past 40, with a black beard.
Senor, that Japanese girl you spoke with, was that her? Yes,
Captain Harris confirmed.
When do we take her to the vault?
The engineer wanted to know.
Late at night, I think. Wait until all the children are asleep. You think she'll come quietly? Of course she will. We'll have all her school friends hostage, after all.
The corners of Captain Harris's mouth turned up.
We'll throw her four-eyed friend off the side first, to make a point. That should bring her into line. The ocean's very cold in December, yes,
the engineer observed.
It's such a tragedy when people fall overboard, Captain Harris continued. On Christmas Eve, Chidori Kaname and her friend will go missing. What about those people? Mithril. We've already left port. They can't touch us, Captain Harris predicted. This will make Mr. Gold happy, and I'll regain my standing with the organization.
It had reached the time for him to give his speech at the banquet. An annoying ritual, but it was part of his job. Harris straightened his tie and began walking towards the grand ballroom. The grand ballroom, where the Jindai High students were gathered, was about the size of a school gymnasium. Lines of huge tables filled the cavernous space, covered in a feast stacked high on silver platters. Fragrantly spiced meat, mountains of seafood in wide varieties, whole roast turkey and roast beef that sparkled like amber, lobster halves glistening with juice. The dinner was buffet style, and every bit of it was all you can eat. The other passengers were apparently eating in other halls, with this space reserved for those related to and serving the students of Jindai High. Most of the students' dining out experiences were limited to hamburgers, gyudon, ramen, and soba, so naturally the anticipation had them on the verge of tears.
Not yet,
the principal rebuked them, as the drooling students prepared to leap at the food. She was standing on the ballroom stage, gripping the microphone and glaring at them.
We must hear the captain's opening remarks first. Listen to me, everyone. I told you before we boarded. Do not embarrass Jindai High School. There are other passengers on board, you know. Be discreet and do not cause any trouble. Remember how you all spent the hijacking, playing card games and bothering the stewardesses, and it was in all the magazines later? I mean, your ideas about appropriate behavior are simply...
Principal Tsuboi continued to lecture them for what turned out to be a little over 3 minutes.
That is all. Do I make myself clear?
The hundreds of students responded with an unusually forceful, "Yes, ma'am!" Their eyes glinted as if to say, "We get it, so let's eat."
Good,
Principal Tsuboi finished grimly.
Then let's have a few words from the captain of the Pacific Chrysalis. Give him a round of applause, everyone.
The bearded captain strode up onto the stage. The students gave him a rock star welcome, clapping and whistling.
Students of Jindai High, thank you for your great patience. I'm the ship's captain, Stephen Harris, he said into the microphone.
The students were honored that you... Whoa, let's jump all the lines. The students were impressed by his fluent Japanese.
Welcome to the Pacific Chrysalis. I'm so honored that you all accepted my invitation. I understand your last field trip turned out to be quite an ordeal.
He cleared his throat once for effect.
But don't worry, I promise there are no terrorists on board my ship.
The students laughed. "Better not be," one of them called out.
Appreciate it, Cap.
"Not like that would happen to us twice, right?" Twice, even. After allowing the students to settle down, Harris continued.
I appreciate the confidence, but I want you to know that I'm serious. Bringing smiles to my passengers is my #1 priority. I take pride in guaranteeing you a perfectly safe and pleasant voyage, so please know that my crew will do everything in their power to...
Harris paused in confusion as one of the servers climbed up onto the stage. He was dressed in the standard black vest and bow tie uniform, but for some reason he was also wearing a face-covering balaclava and carrying a shotgun.
Oh, 1 sec. Here we go. It's not really spoilers, but we do have another image. Sheerest goofery commences.
Captain Harris ventured, unsure of what was going on. With several hundred people watching, the man pointed the shotgun at the ceiling and fired off a shot. With exclamations of surprise, Harris, the principal, and all of the students froze.
Nobody move,
the man proclaimed. He had some kind of device attached to his throat that made his voice low and raspy. A familiar, tight frown was visible beneath his face-covering mask.
Second-year students of Jindai High School, he continued, listen to me closely. We are a ruthless terrorist organization known as the Determined Revolutionaries. This symbol of the imperialistic exploitation class, the Pacific Chrysalis, is now under our control.
His statement was followed by a long, long silence. Then, "Again?" the students shouted in unison. The masked man responded indifferently to their shared, heartfelt groan.
Unfortunately, yes. Control of this ship is now in the hands of...
The man looked up at the ceiling.
Control of this ship is now in the hands of...
Then he looked to the foot of the stage, as if seeking assistance. A bartender, who had arrived at some point holding a rifle, whispered something back to the man. He was similarly masked, but bits of blonde hair could be seen sticking out here and there from his hood.
That's right,
the first terrorist continued uncertainly.
Control of the ship is now in the hands of, the discriminating Red Army.
That's not the name he gave before,
someone observed. Hey, I think he's struggling a little.
I'm not sure he knows what he's doing.
While students whispered to each other, the terrorist looked down and took another deep breath.
The point is, we're cold-hearted terrorists who will gladly kill anyone, even women or children. Resistance means death. I'm sorry to say that my shotgun only contains rubber bullets, but anyone who resists will be shot until they cry uncle and...
No, real bullets!
The masked blonde man hissed to him.
No, real bullets!
That's right,
the first man agreed without skipping a beat.
Deadly slugs. One hit will prove lethal. I'm not lying.
Then he pointed to the doors.
Naturally, you won't be allowed to leave this ballroom. Look.
The students turned around and, as expected, saw an array of armed, masked terrorists blocking the ways to the corridor and the kitchen. Most of them were men dressed as cleaning staff and servers, but for some reason there was a petite woman among them. She had ash-blonde hair and was dressed in a maid's uniform, carrying a submachine gun. The lower half of her face was hidden by a scarf, the top half by Ray-Ban sunglasses. If I could flip a page competently...
Those people are all highly skilled, trained in Libyan terrorist camps, the first terrorist told them. Don't even think about trying to fight them unarmed.
The terrorists blocking the exits all took an imposing step forward. The masked maid attempted to do the same, but she tripped over her high heels and face-planted on the spot.
Colonel!
The first terrorist shouted in alarm. The masked maid picked herself up unsteadily, then proudly but weakly hefted up her submachine gun as if to say, "I'm fine." An awkward silence followed. The terrorist cleared his throat, then continued.
Anyway, that's the situation. Now, Captain Harris, please come with us. As murderous terrorists, we have some negotiations to run down with you. What is it?
Harris was staring, dumbfounded, and the terrorist followed his gaze. Chidori Kaname was stalking up the stairs towards the podium.
Stop, woman! Stop, or I'll shoot!
The terrorist pointed his shotgun at Kaname. She didn't stop.
I told you to stop.
He tried again. Kaname still didn't stop.
Your foolhardiness will be your undoing. Obey, or see your friends and teachers blasted into... Wham!
A right straight punch from Kaname sent the terrorist slamming to the floor. The microphone went flying and crashed to the stage with a deafening screech of feedback.
You know, Sosuke, you are really something else.
For better or worse, the mic didn't pick up her voice. Kaname lifted the terrorist up by the lapels.
Now come with me,
she finished ominously.
Wait, Chidori, I can explain.
Just come with me.
Listen to me,
Sosuke begged.
What part of come with me don't you understand?
Kaname snarled, stalking off the stage, half dragging the terrorist with her. For some reason, his allies didn't try to stop it. They actually looked a bit abashed about the situation, which is why the terrorist guarding the ballroom doors simply withered beneath her glare and stepped aside. The door slammed closed behind them, and silence returned. A buzz of whispers started among the Jindai High students.
Kaname-chan.
Not even terrorists scare her.
She's so brave.
I'm so impressed, Chidori-san.
I think she's just touchy because she's hungry. But there was something familiar about that dynamic.
As the conversations continued, another terrorist took to the stage. This time it was a tall woman dressed as a casino dealer with a checkered vest, a bow tie, and a tight, knee-length skirt. She was wearing large sunglasses and carrying a famous German-made submachine gun on a strap over her shoulder. "Sorry about that," she said with an awkward laugh. So anyway, you're all going to stay here in this hall. That girl was turning hysterical, so our colleague escorted her to the infirmary." It looked a lot more like Kaname. It looked a lot more like it was Kaname who had dragged the terrorist away, but the woman sounded confident in her version of events. "Fortunately, you've all had experience as hostages, so I won't waste time with all the do's and don'ts," she continued. "Just find ways to kill time like you did last time. You'll be back home safe tomorrow."
I feel like I've heard that voice somewhere before,
Kyoko muttered to herself. "So, any requests?" the terrorist asked. "We're happy to indulge within reason."
Excuse me, but we're really hungry,"
one of the students ended up shouting. "Ah, that's right. Sorry about that. Go ahead and eat," she told them. "I'll check back in later." While the students rushed for the mountains of food, the terrorists walked off the stage with the pale-faced captain in tow. And that is where we will call it for this week. Sorry, for today. We have more this week, thank goodness.
I'm not crazy.
So yes, this is a goofy one. We'll find out more about what folks are doing here. Who are these people? They're awfully familiar, aren't they? Anyway, we'll continue this next week. Let's see, what do I got going on? This Wednesday we'll read through more of 40,000 in Gehenna, possibly the final installment? Maybe? How many pages is it? 60-ish. Yeah. We will finish off 40,000 in Gehenna, which means I'll get to include a slideshow of all the things, covers and everything. And on Friday we'll be reading what I think will be the penultimate installment of The Ascension Factor by Frank Herbert and Bill Ransom. So we'll have that to look forward to as well. Anyway, hope people enjoyed the start of Book 6 of Full Metal Panic, and the final book of Collector's Edition 2, which collects about 3 books per. There are 4 collector's editions, about 3 books each, and there are 12 total volumes of the original. There's a large number of side stories, but I cannot remember how many. Let me see if I've got those floating around. I don't have the published physical print editions. They were on sale in some, maybe it was Humble Bundle, I'm not sure. Some digital bundling. I do have physical editions of the collector's edition of Full Metal Panic, though. I am reading a physical book. Where's my literature thing? Here we go. There's like 9 short stories. So if I'd been planning ahead, I would have fit one in, like, between a bunch of these. But I was not thinking ahead. Maybe I'll do some of those next time I do some Full Metal Panic. The general game plan right now, I don't know what I'm doing for Wednesdays after I finish off 40,000 in Gehenna. I will be reading on Mondays. We'll do the first volume of Legend of the Galactic Heroes once we're done with this book of Full Metal Panic. And after we finish the Ascension Factor, I will be starting promptly on The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. Just in time for Halloween. It is a dark, brooding, and spooky affair, though you won't know it from the first 2 chapters or so. Then it gets underway and gets into gear. So that'll be in a week or 2. That won't be this week. It'll probably be the week after next. Yeah, it'll be the week after next. That's okay. Anyway, with that, I think that's it. Oh, right. I have organized, or I've updated all the playlists. So there's a couple new playlists floating around for the stuff that I've been reading for the last month and change. As well as... they're not... These aren't all completed, but yeah, they're all updated for like the last month and change. I'll update them again. Yeah, I generally update them every month, so I'll update them again next month. I think that's it. Yeah, I updated that like this past weekend. Those should be in their proper order. If they're not, tell me, and I will get that fixed. Usually I double check. I don't think I did. Let me do that now. Let me do that now, whilst I am here and thinking about it. Playlists, there we are. Do-dee-doo-doo-doo-dee. Do-do-dee-doo-doo-doo-doo. There they are. Do-do-dee-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Yes, okay, those ones are right. Very good. Those ones are right. Very good. And the Ascension Factor. And those look to be correct as well. Excellent. Okay. Any new comments that I haven't seen floating around? I don't respond to comments terribly often, but I do read them all. And they are appreciated. But I do always read them. So always, never feel like, if it's criticism, like I'm going to take it poorly. It might not have an impact, but I will read it. Depending. If it's good feedback and it's something that's readily, easily for me to do, then yeah, we'll definitely be doing that. Anyway, that's it. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other. I'll see you all next time, this Wednesday, when we read the final installment of 40,000 in Gehenna by one CJ Cherry. See you all later. Stay safe. I did that already. Goodbye.